my #1 vocab and listening game for teaching kids English is Touch Race. It's super simple and you can use it in pretty much any physical classroom situation. I'm Will from Enchanted ESL and this video is about Touch Race, a game many of you English teachers will have used before. It's nothing particularly new or innovative, but in this video I'll explain a lot of different variations that you might not have thought of. The premise is as easy as it gets. You say something and the students have to go and run and touch it. It's best in a sports hall or a playground. Anywhere really that they can run about and not crash into things. Moving chairs and tables out of the way in a classroom can work too. And obviously it's not for online classes. The most basic variation I use with absolute beginners is northeast-southwest. You assign a compass point to a different wall or corner of the room, and then you say those words and students have to run to them. Obviously that's very limited. It's a good place to start, but you'll soon want to start introducing some different vocabulary. It's a good idea to get your hands on some flashcards, or you can make some of your own by printing out a piece of paper and these A5 plastic wallets. And instead of vocab, you can use letters or numbers. I like to print out big sheets with one letter on each and stick them up all around the place. This is great for students listening carefully to the subtle differences between letters like B and V and M and N. You can stick them to the walls or lay them out on the floor. I recommend putting them on the walls if you can. That's best in a sports hall or a playground area, because on the floor when they're running about they can slip over on them and they get destroyed. However, if you're playing in a smaller space where they're not rushing about at full speed, putting them on the floor can be good and they just use their hands to tap them. Now if you have a large class, it can get pretty chaotic with all of them rushing about. So I would suggest splitting them into groups, and you can have one group playing while the others sit out for a moment, and then you rotate them. But that can be a bit boring for the ones who aren't playing. So an alternative is to separate them into groups and assign each group a colour. Let's say red group, blue group and yellow group. And then when you call out your commands, you give each group a different command. So red group, cheese, blue group, tomatoes, yellow group, sandwich. And this will save 30 or so students all rushing to the same flashcard. Generally, I'd avoid making this game too much of a competition. Yes, praise students for getting to the words first, but don't start giving out points. And of course, set clear expectations about safety and fair play. This kind of game is a bit too exciting for some students, and you don't want to end up with a trip to the hospital. After a while, students will get the hang of the game, and it might start to get a bit repetitive and boring. That's where you can introduce a bunch of different variations to spice it up. One way of doing this is to give a secondary part of the instruction that describes how they should reach the thing they need to touch. For example, hopping, crawling or skipping. So your command could be like, everyone hop to letter G. Obviously you'll have to teach students the verbs for each of these actions, and I wouldn't use too many. 3 is about right. Another variation is to call out general categories. So if you're practicing sports vocab, you could call out ball sports. And that means students can run and touch basketball, football, tennis, anything with a ball in. I like this because it gets students thinking a little bit more deeply about the words and learning a few new adjectives. The final variation is my favourite. Once they've really got the hang of the game, let them call the shots. Choose a more confident student and be there to assist to begin with. All they need to do is just yell out the word or the letter or the number or whatever it is you're practicing. Let them do that a few times and then give another student a go. Beware of them avoiding the trickier words because they don't quite know how to say them, and give them plenty of structuring and support. And once they're confident with all of that, you can join in with the runners going after the targets. Kids absolutely love it when you do this, but of course it's really easy for you. And if you go straight for the correct answer, all of the rest will just follow you and not really think about what the word is. Instead, I usually run around in circles and act confused until the students take the lead. Or sometimes I might just rush off to the wrong answer to try and catch them out. And feel free to combine these variations. For example, if you have a big class and you're doing the color-coded groups, you could choose one student from each of those groups to call out a command. That means there'll be multiple commands, each from a different student, and they'll have to listen real carefully to make sure they get the right one. And when you add in the commands for the different types of movement to get to the target, plus all of the different categories like the ball sports, then you have a game that could challenge quite a lot of adults. The final thing to say is about how long you can play. Rushing about all the time gets tiring. I usually find after about 15 minutes, depending on the students, everybody's a bit sick of it. So to save it becoming like forced exercise, pay attention to how your students are going, and when they start flagging, just call an end to the game there. Plus, if you play it in every session, it will become a bit repetitive, even with all the different variations. But you can keep the listening and vocab practice going with a slightly calmer game called Swap the Word. I've made a video on how you can play that, and it's right here, so go watch it. But for now, I've been Will from Enchanted ESL, wishing you all the joy and success in your teaching. See ya!